Realistically, search engines want you to provide a good user experience. You know this already. So it makes sense that they provide you, as a webmaster, with ways in which you can improve the way you communicate with search engines. They want to make life easy for you when it comes to getting across the content of your site. So you need to know what key tools are offered to you, and you need to know how to use them effectively for your own SEO tactics. In this section of the course, we're going to break down some of the most commonly used and useful SEO tools that you can implement in your SEO campaign to great effect. From sitemaps to search engine protocols to other useful SEO tools that can help your pages get indexed and ranked and get your site up those SERPs. We're going to start with sitemaps, and it seems prudent to start with the most basic question. What are sitemaps? Essentially, sitemaps are tools with which you can give crawlers a helping hand when crawling your site. They're files that you can install on your site, which include all of your website's individual URLs. Basically, they're an archive of all your web pages that you need to install in order to help search engines crawl your site. They hold files for the web pages that crawlers may not have found on their own, for example. Pages behind login portals, pages behind broken links, or pages that, for whatever reason, aren't currently indexed. In this chapter, I'll guide you through some of the different formats that sitemaps come in, how to install them on your WordPress site, and some of the SEO advantages that come from the installation of a sitemap. There are certain sites that can really benefit from the addition of a sitemap. These are large websites, sites with a lot of content but a relatively poor linking strategy, new sites, and sites with rich media content. Remember, a sitemap poses no risks to you and your site's SEO, only benefits. Google states that although it cannot guarantee its bots will crawl and read a sitemap, you will never be penalised for the inclusion of one. As well as this, an XML sitemap helps to protect you from content scrapers and content duplication. The sitemap shows the exact time the content was published, down to the hour. So, if you end up falling victim to content scrapers, you can prove the exact date and time you published your own original content. There are three key formats that sitemaps come in that you should be aware of. The first is an XML file, or extensible markup language. This is the most common and probably our recommended form of sitemap for just this reason. Now beware that they might sometimes be extremely large files due to the requisite of an open and close tag around every element within them. So this could affect the performance of your site in terms of speed. However, they're a widely accepted format and make life as easy as possible for search engines to interpret them and therefore index your pages. You can also generate them extremely easily with several online generators, which will make life easier for you and your web developer. To give you an idea of what they look like in your source code, here's an XML file with just one URL. The next format is an RSS file, or a rich site summary file, although you may sometimes find them called by really simple syndication. These types of sitemaps are easy to maintain, as they're coded to automatically update when new content is added to the site. However, they are generally harder to manage, as they are always updating. Therefore, your sitemap reports may not always be consistent. The third and final format I'll cover are TXT, or text files. The great thing about these is that they are so easy to install, as they are simply single lines of URLs that you want the search engine to crawl, all the way up to 50,000 lines. The issue with them is that you can't use these files to include metadata or meta tags that help search engines analyze or parse media files, such as imagery or video that otherwise can't be interpreted. For now, we're going to focus on sitemaps in XML format, as they're the most widely used and easily crawlable versions. So, how to install one? It's pretty simple. If you have a WordPress site, simply log in as admin, then go to the left-hand panel where you can see plugins. Select Add New, then in the Search Plugins text box, type Google XML Sitemaps. Ensure you're choosing the one that has the author name Arna Brackhold. Once WordPress has finished installing the plugin, click Activate Plugin. The next step is to configure it so that you let search engines know what you want indexed. Go to Setting and click XML Sitemaps. Then, under Basic Options, choose which search engines you want to notify of updates being made to your site. With that done, go to Sitemap Content. Under this, you select the types of content you want to be indexed and included in your sitemap. You can review a few more of the default settings. Then, finally, click Update Options. Once you've done this, you're away. You should now be pointing crawlers to the pages you want indexed and ranked. If your site isn't on WordPress, there are several free sitemap generator tools that can help you build them and that your web developer can install on your site for you. Our favourite is xmlsitemaps.com. It's a really easy to use free tool that helps you build and install a sitemap that will direct search engines to appropriate locations on your site and crawl your pages as you want them to. Just go to xmlsitemaps.com. Enter your site URL, ideally the URL for your homepage, as this will mean that the majority of your site's pages are included in the sitemap. Ensuring it's typed correctly, then click Submit. This loads for some time as your site is crawled, so we're going to skip this process for you and pick up from when the crawl is completed. Once the process is complete, click on Sitemap Details. On this page, you can see all the URLs your sitemap will include. The next step is to click on Download your XML sitemap file. Then upload the file to the root directory of your website. This is normally located in a public_HTML folder, but it's always a good idea to ask your developer to do this for you unless you are confident digging around in HTML code yourself. Plus, you need FTP or File Transfer Protocol access. If you're not particularly technical, let someone who is technical upload sitemaps for you. Once you have uploaded the sitemap, log on to your Google Search Console. Then you need to go to Index and then underneath that click Sitemaps. Submit the URL for your sitemap and the URLs you have included will be ready for indexing by Google. So, you know why sitemaps exist: to point crawlers to certain pages and ensure their indexation, and how to install one. Now, before moving on to a couple of misconceptions about sitemaps, just take a look at some of these guidelines that Google recommend for your own sitemaps. Ensure you use consistent, fully qualified URLs, which essentially means URLs exactly as they appear, as these are what search engines will crawl. Don't include session IDs in your URLs, which come about from tracking different users through the same content, as this will lead to duplicate crawling and an increase in the chances that you're accused of creating duplicate content. If sitemaps are extremely large, containing over 50,000 separate URLs, break it down into smaller sitemaps to reduce the risk of your server being overloaded. If you have desktop and mobile versions of the same page, only build a sitemap pointing to one version of the page. So, there you have your introduction to sitemaps. In the next lesson, we're going to briefly discuss some misconceptions about sitemaps. In this chapter, we're going to discuss some common misconceptions SEOs have when it comes to installing sitemaps, as they are one of the most useful tools in SEO, and you need to be aware of any pitfalls that exist when implementing them into your strategy. So, without further ado, let's have a look at some mistaken thoughts that we see frequently in the SEO world. Now, if you think that when you've generated, submitted, and configured your sitemaps, that Google will automatically index all of the pages that are submitted, you would be mistaken. The fact is, just because Google can crawl a page doesn't necessarily mean it will get indexed. Sure, you're pointing the crawlers in the right direction, but this does not necessarily mean they will be indexed just because you have asked Google nicely. Google indexes pages that they crawl and then judge worthy of indexation. Of course, there is certainly something to be said for the fact that a sitemap will lead crawlers to your pages and will therefore potentially index your pages, as you're giving the search engine a clue that, hey, this page is worth crawling and indexing. But this is only a clue and nothing more. As usual, you must make sure that the content of the page is of high quality and that you're providing something of value that search engines will rate as a good page to show users. The next commonly made mistake we often see is that SEOs attempt to index every single page using sitemaps. Not a great idea. Fact is, pages generally fall into two categories: utility pages and pages made up of good content. Utility pages are simply those that do offer a useful and necessary service to the user, but don't have any real quality content on them. For example, password retrieval pages, checkout pages, which are necessary and offer value to users, but you wouldn't expect to see as a landing page on the SERPs, would count as a utility page. Now, although Google understands that you need these pages in order to offer the full user experience, if you include these pages in your sitemap, you're basically telling Google that you don't know what is good content and what isn't, what you want to see as a result on Google and what you don't. If you have a site of 100 pages and only 3 of them are good content, the rest are useless. Google isn't going to rank those 3 pages highly. This is because the odds that a user clicks a link to a poor quality page are pretty low. This will result in a bad user experience, and Google won't be keen on showing your site to any users, regardless of how good your 3 top quality pages are and how relevant they are to the search query. So, you need to make sure you don't use your sitemaps to try and point crawlers to your utility pages. Only submit the pages you would want to see as a search result on your sitemaps. The pages you don't want to have indexed, your utility pages, you need to apply with the Meta Robots No Index tag, which brings us nicely onto our next chapters on other search engine protocols, where we'll start by elaborating on robot.txt files.